Good morning, Auckland, and welcome to Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 6, The Bounty, where I'm just gonna cut the engines right now. Because this episode, we're gonna go straight into these images. This is an interesting one, because it didn't really do it for me, and it's an interesting one because it's the first one in a while, if ever, potentially, on these channels, these reviews I do, where it didn't really do it for me, and I'm not entirely sure why. It's, I think, at the root of this episode is kind of a dichotomy that I haven't talked about as a dichotomy before, but I've talked about it, one side of it, quite a bit, where, and also Alex is here today, so we get to dance around proper nouns. The Star Trek Picard is very clearly a show that loves Star Trek. And did I just see myself buffer? No, we're good. Livestream is good. Yeah, very clearly, it's a show that loves Star Trek. It's a show written by people who love Star Trek. It also seems to be a show that doesn't really like Star Trek. At least this episode. So, this episode, very clearly, this episode had a big fleet museum where we saw some nice legacy ships. We saw some Constitutions, Defiance, some Voyagers. This episode also has 7 of 9, talking about how Captain Picard can go off on, some poetic speeches, and that's annoying. Like, did you like, did you like TNG? That's kind of what happens. This episode had Moriarty in it. I'm not gonna find these images. There we go. This episode had Moriarty in it. It also had him for all of 10 seconds. Not actually the Moriarty we know. Just the trailers kind of ran with that. But also he's here because I guess he kind of relates to Data if you think about it. I suppose the crow makes sense. This episode remembered that Lol is tucked away in Data's brain. Data actually puts a shocking number of people in his brain over the course of TNG. I like that, but this episode also kind of undermines the first season, in the conclusion of that, and also Nemesis, although I will grant you Nemesis kind of undermined its own conclusion with Before, and Data's engrams in Before. I'll come up with a lot more instances as we go along. This episode has Riker, Worf coming in and having a very sensible continuation of his arc. He was always very honorable and stuff. He had a strong sense of what was right and what was wrong, but it also has Riker seemingly dumbfounded by everything and just kind of behaving really weirdly and what? Worf is meditating? This is nothing like the Worf I know. I'm do you know the Shaxx version of Worf, or kind of the Worf that you spent 7 years with and the audience spent 14 years with, and kind of goes on this journey? Worf wasn't really ever Worf wasn't ever really Shaxx. Shaxx intentionally being a Worf stereotype that's extremely exaggerated. But and the other thing is, again, the backdrop, which I've talked a lot about in this season. The backdrop of Star Trek Picard just feeling like a modern day government and not really like a Starfleet. There's no utopia. There's no hope there. This Section 31 is now an integral and known part of Starfleet security again, so much so that they store their most dubious and dangerous things in a Daystrom institution. This episode had, I pointed this out, I was browsing the Reddit a bit before starting the stream. Where's this scene right near the end where in here, this person, this blurry person interrogating Riker, this is a changeling, right? And later in the scene, they execute the two officers behind her, implying that those are Starfleet officers, like normal general. They're just Starfleet officers. They're exactly what they seem to be. So are they just fine with this right now? Like, does Starfleet look at this and go, yes, this is perfectly acceptable. I have no problems with this scenario whatsoever. Let's go on. And like just the whole organization, like the station itself, it didn't do it for me this week, and it's really hard to define why. It's unfortunate that this seems to be the one review that no one's really showed up for, because I was kind of hoping, like, is there a holiday or something, actually? Usually there's a lot of real consistent people I'm not seeing, but, yeah. No, it is the date and time that I think it is. Alright, that's good. But no, like, I was kind of hoping that would drive the conversation, because I'm curious. My audience so far has been we've been on the same page for most things on like how we've been reacting, what we've liked and what we've not. And I'd love to talk with someone about this episode and try and really kind of work out what's happening. Like why is what's not working for me not working, and why is what's working for you working? We will definitely be exploring the Reddit after this, and I think someone's actually kind of found the final plot. Do I want to skip ahead? I'll wait to that. I saw a great prediction in the Reddit. We'll save the Reddit for later. But yeah, if we go through, I really don't know how much I'm going to have to interject with. Oh yeah, there's another bit with Jack Crusher at the end. He was like, I got yeah from my mom, but like, I also can be brave. And it's like, I never knew where I got that from. And I'm like, really? I mean, Dr. Crusher's a lot of things, and one of them is, like, probably recklessly brave. You know, that she can be very recklessly brave. And one-track mind when it comes to my patient is in danger. Hello, Carlos. Carlos, what did you think about today's episode? It was interesting. I think... I'll say the Reddit was full of a lot of people who felt very uncomfortable that Kirk's body is just in some pod in the Daystrom station. Did you miss that? Because I missed that. Along with Picard's body, they just have Kirk's body just sitting in Daystrom station, which is... There's a I will get in... It's not spoilers, but it's like you'd actually have to pause and zoom in and read all of the text that were on the plaques. A lot of what, Carlos? But yeah, it's... I think someone's found the plot. No, I think someone has found the plot, and we will get to that at the end. I also found out those subtitle spoilers I mentioned. I learned what they were. Yeah, it actually seems like a pretty big spoiler. I would not be turning on subtitles for this season. But yeah, this did throw me off a little bit, the whole whatever syndrome. I can't remember what it's called. Because I thought that only came to you, like, real later in life, but I guess, like, maybe you can detect it earlier, and then, yeah, they're saying, like, it could be decades before it actually comes up and becomes fatal. A bit weird that it's an inheritable and therefore genetic disease that we can't just cure, like in utero, genetically engineer that out. But I mean, Picard had it. You know, they probably could have engineered it out of Picard if they want to. Maybe there's some reason you can't. I'm willing to accept that. And yeah, a lot more here. I think most of what I tend to talk about is a little, like, mostly end. This is a very backloaded episode. I want to shout out this conference meeting that only had one quip in it, and it was extraordinarily out of place, stuck out like a sore thumb. It was Riker's excellent use of the word burgle, Admiral. But there was only one. You know, this was pretty close to like a proper sit down here at the stakes conference room of the olden days. But yeah, it felt that one felt weird. Hello, everybody. Hello, Stress VK. Everybody's arriving. Is my watch off or something? That really threw me. Like, usually there's at least someone here. I was like, ugh. Stress VK, what did you think about this episode? I'd love someone to come here in and be like, this was the best episode I've ever seen in my life. Carlos, I didn't pay attention to most of what was shown, just paid attention to the main goal, and I was very disappointed. The whole data thing is dry, nothing new, and Stop George! That's a name I recognize, but an icon I don't. How does Beverly ignore the fact that Jack killed 4 changelings and chalks it up to aromatic syndrome? That is a point that this episode kind of went like, oh yeah, aromatic syndrome. Sorted. And then this was actually something that I kind of clocked when I was reading through the Reddit. Someone went like, Picard went decades with literally no symptoms. Like, there is something else going on. I can tell you now, as a matter of fact, from the subtitle spoilers, that is not entirely aromatic syndrome, is my mic falls down. I don't know if you could heard that. There is something else going on. I will not spoil the subtitle spoilers, but I guess they have more pressing things at the moment. Like, it is kind of odd, though, that Beverly didn't say something like, now he has aromatic syndrome, but there's also, this can't explain everything, you know? Stress VK, the episode felt like the wonderful early Discovery days. Ooh, Stress VK, we're gonna have a big fight there. Where the plot just kept moving at breakneck pace. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, this was another odd one. Again, there's a dichotomy. I don't know if you were here right at the start of the live stream, but this episode had a plot that just kept moving. Things kept happening, and I will give you that. But it kept interrupting that plot to gush at how good Star Trek was. Like, so you could look at the old ships. So you could have these kind of little interactions. You gotta sit down and justify why a certain character is back from the dead for a second time, after you yourself killed them earlier this series. It's why it felt like a weird dichotomy. It almost felt like the writers. No, I don't. I want to be careful how I phrase this, but it almost has a sense of you wrote a show and then put Star Trek into the show, which is not true because they very much wrote a show about the TNG characters and that sort of thing. But this episode could kind of get the feeling where the plot itself, there's no reason this, like, plot, burgling Daystrom, is a Star Trek plot. There's absolutely no reason. That could be in a billion shows. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But because we kept taking break from that plot, which was very, like, boom, 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 let's move, to specifically interject, hey, the Defiant's pretty, hey, the Voyager's pretty, you know? Ooh, the Voyager. Oh, I've been corrupted. The Voyager. Ugh. But, It could kind of have that feel of, like, as well with what I've been talking a lot before, of the backdrop of this universe is very much a modern day government. It is not the utopian Starfleet. It kind of feels like it's trying to remind us that it is Star Trek, which it's not what it's doing, and it's giving off that feeling. Like, that's not at all what this show is. I want to be clear here, but it was a dichotomy, which I think it was certain things kind of that don't fit together well clashing, which is why this episode didn't really do it for me in a lot of places. Stop George. It's obvious there's something else going on, but it makes Dr. Crusher look stupid. I wouldn't go that far. As I said, there are other things going on. And maybe this meeting might not have been like, hey, there's something going on with Jack. It was to tell Picard about the syndrome. But I definitely see your point. Like, if they just brush it off and go, I thought we sorted that in a later episode, then yeah, I'd agree. Yes, stress, very next speed. Yes, it is. I think the pacing in this season has been really good overall. But yeah, it's hard to think back to the early days of Discovery, how they were paced, because I really hated early Discovery. Carlos, with the member berries display, I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly. Does anything have any relevance to the entire narrative? Does it at all? If you mean the museum, yes. I think that's Chekhov's gun for a finale. Do we want to just go read that Reddit post? But if you mean the stuff in the Institute, yes, that is Chekhov's gun for the finale. Stress VK, that's what made me sad about the episode. Beverly should have already known Jack had Irmatic syndrome. Isn't it really hard to find, if I remember all good things correctly? Like, the only reason they found it in Picard is because they knew he would get it in the future. And still, that wouldn't help him instantly turn into a John Wick killing machine. Yes, that's something else. I'm going to read this Reddit post. I am not going to show you because it does have subtitle spoilers. This is from PFC9769. If you don't want me to potentially spoil how this plot's going to go, wait until I put the show back on screen. You could just mute things, but we're probably going to be here for a while. I'm just going to read the post and interject every now and then. I think the changelings are trying to resurrect Locutus. I know, I kind of went, hang on a sec, but hear this one out. That's why they went to Jean-Luc's original body. It doesn't stop there, though. They've been infecting people with nanobots, or a nanovirus, like one from the Dark Frontier. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but it's capitalized. Using the transporter. Ro didn't trust the transporter at first. And the first changeling on the Titan impersonated the transporter chief. By the way, if this is all correct, there's some amazing setup in thought process in this in this season. Their ultimate plan: create a collective they control. That's their ultimate goal, after all, to control the solids. Way better. What better way to do that than use stolen Borg tech? They've perfected the ability to control others. Infecting the Federation with a nanovirus would be sweet revenge for what Section 31 did to the Founders. There was a vinculum at Daystrom Station, which is what you need to network together drones to create a collective. It was clearly shown in the background behind Worf on one of the vault displays, which I'm going to interject here. That means they didn't steal it, but it was there. Voyager encountered one and got up close and personal. They could have gotten the Borg tech from the Season 1 artifact or the Daystrom Station. Now we're approaching the spoilers, just let me catch up. Okay, I think the Borg have caught on to the rogue collective they've created, and that's the reason for the vision Jack's been seeing. He would have been infected when they tried to transport him. It's possible the changelings have their own queen who's up to no good. That's the only way I can reconcile the fact that Jack rebelled and attacked the changelings, which is another good point. If the changelings are doing this to Jack, he wouldn't have murdered changelings. Point to this episode in which a changeling harms another very unnecessarily. They may need him for his Picard DNA to complete their plan, or because he can spoil their ultimate plan. I like that theory. I think a lot of things line up. Stop George as well. Yep, you agree. I think so too. Jack will be the new. I'll say it. We'll talk about this. If you don't want this kind of speculation, I'd recommend leaving the stream because I think we're probably going to be talking about it. Yeah, Jack will be the new Locutus. This makes sense. Maybe there's some reason Picard can't be it, but maybe it's like something to do with the Eumonic syndrome. For some reason, because Picard has been cured of it, he can't be the Borg Queen, but Jack can. And, like, it's a really rare disease, isn't it? So that's why it needs to be Jack specifically. He's the only one they know who has it. Oh dear, Verniculum, that's frightening. Yeah, the little Plim Blob. You'll never play The Sims the same again. But, what was I going to say? God, I completely lost track. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It could also bring in, the Borg collected from last season. The Borg have been a sort of running theme. It is another, hey, remember that great moment in classic Star Trek? We're going to bring that back, which this season does seem to really like. It's odd how it handles its references. But yeah, I'll get later. There's more things people from the Reddit caught that I didn't. I think we'll get to back to later. But I think a lot of those points are gonna be spot on. And if that whole transporter thing is correct too, that has been really well done. That's what I love in a show where they knew what they were gonna do. The writers, they put those seeds down like in completely not oblivious ways. Ro doesn't use the transporter. Like, that's normal. The Changeling was a transporter chief. They had to be someone. Like, loads of things. They tried to beam up Jack, and that's when he get infected. None of these things you'd think of. And then, after the fact, if you learn that and go and watch, you're like, oh, Ro can fight them because she hasn't beamed anywhere in several years. Like, all these things. Does that mean we'll get Barclay with his transporter phobia coming up, saving the day? Yeah, just VK, Picard is just a golem and doesn't have any Borg nanoprobes hiding away. Yeah, I think Jack has been Borg nanoprobes since birth. They could try and do that. Borg nanoprobes are an STD, I guess. They could try and go that route, explaining his nightmares as a child. That's a good point. He had them as a child, too. Let's actually interject here, and let's talk about some things at the end. Let's go around here to the 11-minute mark, but we're going to skip ahead, because there's some few other interesting threads in this season. So this season set up that every ship in Starfleet is now connected. They talk to each other, which is astonishingly stupid given Prodigy happened. And I think some other things, even Lower Decks had those like hive mind ships that went, but whatever. Maybe the Changelings did it. Like that's kind of the point. This episode also set up a massive museum of fan-pleasing favorite ships that are not connected to this like hive, because they're all in a museum. This episode also has themes of, like, the last generation, the next generation, the older generation, the younger one. A sort of battle between the Defiant, the Voyager, the Enterprise, the Constitution class, the NX, like, all these fan-pleasing ships versus the collective thing that the Changelings are going to build up. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I would not be surprised at all. This episode, so if you read the plaque on both Picard and Kirk's body, which, yes, Kirk's body has been sitting in Daystrom Station, apparently, both of them say that the body was recovered for Project Phoenix, which very strongly says that Starfleet or someone is trying to bring these people back to life. Actually, if you really wanted to go crazy, you could, like, literally revive Kirk and Picard and, like, all these people and have, like, Janeway could command Voyager, Kirk could command the Enterprise. Like, I don't know. But it'd be kind of weird to justify how come Kirk aged since Generations. But there's some plot about them trying to resurrect old officers, it seems, or maybe put them in synth bodies. Like, who knows? This episode did set up a lot in terms of development and plot-wise. Stop George. I think the whole Ro plot was silly. She tips off the changelings that she won't use the transporter, and yet she sends most of the Titan crew to their demise by transporting them. She probably doesn't know the transporters are infected or something. The thing is, it was implied the changelings are killing people through transporter accidents, air quotes, but, like, the changelings wouldn't have just executed all these random ensigns by transporting them over. They would have gotten one beam. It would have been some sort of horrible accident, then no one would have beamed off the Titan. The changelings are patient, they're smart. There's no one important enough beaming over that's worth getting rid of. Everyone who's worth getting rid of remained on the Titan. Except for Ro, who didn't beam over, and they still killed her. Just VK, is that the transporter room from 1701A with the blue glob on top? Do you mean when they were beaming earlier? I doubt it, because that became the TNG transporter, which became the Voyager transporter, if I remember correctly. But I also noticed this episode had a lot of kind of misplaced sound effects. The beam-in at the start of this episode was the TOS beaming sound, which I love TOS's soundtrack, but it was just kind of like out of place. It's another one of that dichotomy. Like, we love Star Trek, but we don't really understand that this beaming sound doesn't belong in the 25th century. But yeah. Stop George, that starship linking thing would be the rationale for using the old ships in the final episodes guaranteed. Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You'd have to strongly justify how, like, the NX class could go toe-to-toe with literally any ship Starfleet currently yields. Kirk's Constitution class is a bit of a stretch. The Jamestown, which is like the only Constitution class to survive TOS. But yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe they enhance it or something. That's weird. Stop George, that starship. Oh, I read that one. Just oh my god, I really want Voyager back in action. I wouldn't be surprised. They've been talking about Janeway so much. Like, she's gotta appear in something. Like, I was kind of thinking maybe they'll do Star Trek Janeway, but getting Janeway in here to command the Voyager, like, I could see that. I mean, Kate Mulgrew's been talking, like, she wants to get back in to the live action. She's doing Prodigy. It's like she's there. If they wanted to make it happen, I'm sure they could. Carlos says, Smith, the current changelings are not patient and not smart. They don't act as their former ancestors. Yes, no changeling has ever killed another, except that one time, so I guess we're gonna abandon that philosophy. They are extremists, but that's a pretty radical change in your belief system, where, like, that guy was just kind of speaking out of turn, and so execute him, assuming those are changelings. It's still weird to me that, like, she's literally, Vadic was sitting there in her chair, lamenting about the fellow changelings that have to wear the face of Starfleet while looking like a human. There's no reason she has to look like that right now. She could look like Odo if she wanted. She could look like she could be the chair. Like, she doesn't have to be a human. She could sit there in a bucket as some goo with a mouth. But, I don't know. Stop George, they could have replaced Ro on the shuttle when they were alone, and it was silly that they planted a bomb in the end. Plot convenience. It could have been done so much better. But they had to frame the Titan for something, and they had to get rid of Ro. 2 birds, 1 stone. There is a lot of stupidity, if not contrivance, in the setup that I talked about in the review in the episode that actually had Ro. Was that last episode? Like, why would Ro be the one to go there in the first place? But once she's there, it's certainly a sensible plan, I think, to get rid of Ro and blame it on the Titan at the same time. It also, if they potentially want to imitate Picard or bring back Locutus or something, that could also justify why they want Picard. Like, for example, they need to get Picard out of the way because their fake Picard, if you could call him a fake Picard, is going to go to First Contact Day. And if Picard is out running around somewhere and suddenly shows up at First Contact Day, that's not going to work. No, Frontier Day, sorry, that's what they call it. Just VK, you had a 1701A, docked at the shipyard on screen. It had a big blue globe on the top at the edge of the saucer section. What about it? Oh, the transporter room. Sorry, that comment was a while ago. Let's see if I can find it. I want to bring up as well, if that ship goes into battle, the Enterprise A was absolutely famous for being like a pile of garbage held together by God knows what, and like nothing worked, and it was retired after a few years because of it. If that ship goes into battle in better condition than it ever was, like in Kirk's time, yeah, that'd be interesting. But this thing right here, Stress VK, is the Impulse Crystal. Most starships have them. I think even through at least, like, Nemesis, they have them. But it's what makes the Impulse engines go. Don't really question it. They just work. Carlos A. Smith, how many have died since the show started? Up to 6. Do you mean changelings? There's the 4 Jack did. There's the one that looked like LaForge. There's the one that was just shot. So at least 6. I think potentially a few more. But only one of them has been a changeling killing a changeling. David C., I think she meant that it sucks that they had to ever put on the faces of the Federation. Her current face isn't a Federation face. Technically, but also, I think it's pretty safe to say she hates solids. And it is a human face. Like, humanity is the poster species of the Federation. And we're also the species that introduced the virus in the first place. Just VK, the Impulse Crystal. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, since we've seen Impulse Crystals like that. I don't think we see the top of the Defiant, but I'm pretty sure it has one. Yes, it's bothering me. Am I gonna have to go? Okay, fine, give me a sec. I'm gonna go get my Defiant. Alright, there we go. I got my Defiant. The benefits of living in one room. Yeah, the Defiant's got, like, 4 little things, well, on each side at the top. I can't remember what those are, though. I don't think they're Impulse Crystals. Does the Defiant... Where are your Impulse engines? In the back? Yeah, I don't think the Defiant has an Impulse Crystal. So they did stop it at some point. I just can't remember when. Do you know, Stop George, do you know why the Changeling didn't capture/compromise Jack in episode 3? It left him for dead. That has never been explained yet. That's a point. Maybe they don't want Jack for Locutus then. Because then they can't leave him for dead. So they want Jack dead. I don't know. Maybe it's because that's who we're assuming is the board, or like whoever is reaching out to Jack. They're trying to stop the changelings, and they're doing it through Jack, so that's why they want him dead. Do we know that they want Jack or do they want Picard? They probably could have gotten Picard a lot easier straight away. So I think they are after Jack. Maybe... I don't know. There's still a mystery. There's still a mystery in this season. Even if we get a lot, we've got a lot solved already, there's still mystery. I want to get a shot of this whole facility. They were sabotaging the ship to capture Jack, but they didn't want him dead, I thought. It could always be a plot hole, but I don't think so. I think they would have thought that out more. Carlos, the Defiant design does not allow the exposure for the Crystal Dome to be seen. That is a good point. The Defiant was not a not a good ship to grab. But since, like, about this time, the movie era, the ships got a lot bigger, so it becomes a lot harder to see the Impulse Crystal. I think the Titan has one, actually. Not the A, but the Star Trek USS Titan. Maybe. It'd take too long to find. Stress VK, Jack keeps having those Connect Us dreams, so I think they want him. I know things from subtitle spoilers about who... I know things, and I'm not gonna go into the subtitle spoilers, so I'm not gonna talk about who's contacting him. Carlos A. Smith, but it was seen in the updated Stargazer. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. It's just they're a lot smaller compared to the whole ship, so you don't see him as obvious. Oh, hey, look at that. Yeah, it's actually, that's a real good, it's definitely a new model, obviously. I have a hard time deciding if they're somewhat off-colored or if it's just the lighting. But I actually... Oh, you cannot see this. The Defiant. I want to check, though. Was it always that dark? Star Trek USS Defiant. My Eagle Moss model isn't, but Eagle Moss in colors not always accurate. I guess maybe it was. Yeah, these blue panels here. Let me just bring these closer. Yeah, no, oops. That's right. I think it depends on the shot a bit, but it's definitely gonna be a darker blue and darker lighting. It reminds me of, is it Diamond Select? Someone did a Defiant model that looks like it has the wrong colors, and they used that blue. I also have just realized, is this whole museum horrifically out of scale? Because everyone is in one of these rings. And so you could kind of probably do some size comparisons. Come on, where's the museum? You had a great shot. I know the Enterprise NX is in here and I didn't see it, so I know I'm missing ships. There we go. Who wants to play Spot That Starship? The Bird of Prey, of course. Enterprise A. Other Bird of Prey. Steam Runner. Actually kind of looks like a D4, but that's a D7. Surely there was never a D4 model. The NX, which is suitably small. Reliant, not the Miranda, though. It doesn't have a roll bar. Could be the Bozeman. I don't know if anyone noticed. Do you remember the Bozeman that was the ship from the Time Loop episode? It was the Miranda class. That, you know, showed up from, like, the movie era. That ship went on to do stuff. It was constantly referenced in, like, The Next Generation is, like, a ship that was off on a mission or doing something that was nearby. In the Deep Space Nine, it fought throughout, like, the entire Dominion War. Like, it's 100 years out of date, but by God, the Bozeman got some use out of it. It deserves to be in a museum. Nebula class, Voyager. Someone brought up, do you think it still has the armor from the finale? Like, apparently they left the cloaking device in the Bird of Prey, didn't bother studying that. Another thought, is that that old technology, does it still work? Because I seem to recall they found a way to beat the Klingon cloaks from that era, but citation needed on that one. I could be misremembering. Excelsior, maybe the Enterprise B, maybe the Excelsior. Akira, Constitution, and Stargazer. David C., it's almost surreal how much better Season 3 of Picard is from any new Trek. I wouldn't say any, but yes, it is highly up there. It may be the best live-action season of New Trek. I'd have to compare Strange New Worlds again and see how this concludes. Especially the abysmally written Discovery. Think how much money they wasted on that show. Vitalis could have used that money. No, I think Discovery got better in its later years. I think Season 3, Season 4, and Season 5... Well, I can't say Season 5, but it's been steps up. And I'm actually going to come back to that. I'm going to stick on this comment for a while, because I'm actually a bit concerned that Star Trek has been learning the wrong lessons. Discovery started off not really working. It's had its audience. Of course, we don't know the viewing figures. It was unexpectedly, Season 5 was not expected to be the 5th season, implying it was canceled, or at least not renewed. They've had to go back and film extra scenes to make it a proper finale. So it implies Discovery never really found its audience, especially for its budget. Picard, of course, started off not popular. Not popular at all. Then Lower Decks worked. The Orville was working, and I remember some kind of fear, or even as the other seasons were going on, that Star Trek was learning the wrong lessons from Lower Decks, which has absolutely outstanding characters that carry the show for people who've never seen another Star Trek. They're amazing. It's great plots, great characters and stuff. And it's funny, and it works in Lower Decks, but they've been kind of putting that in other shows. Like, my biggest problem with Strange New Worlds was kind of that Marvel quippiness. And I learned after watching it that they got Mike McMahon in and just said, hey, Mike McMahon, here's a scene. Like, can you write some jokes? Can you add some humor? And I'm like, yes, I already know exactly what scenes you're talking about, because they didn't need jokes, and it doesn't work. And it's very Lower Decksy humor. And of course, Lower Decks does lean a lot on legacy characters. People love Janeway and Prodigy. Prodigy, I don't know how successful it is in terms of viewership, but it's very highly praised. And now, this last season of Picard, it's the best one of the three, easily. I don't think the haters and the lovers, I think, are all saying that. And it's the one that brought back all the legacy characters. People are saying this is what should have been all along. And my fear is that they're going to take this lesson and go, Star Trek only works if we have the legacy characters. Discovery had none. And it's seemingly didn't work, at least not as well as they wanted it to. It was a new setting. It was everything. I'm afraid we're not going to push Star Trek forward. We're just going to keep sticking with these legacy characters, which, don't get me wrong, it's fun to see. But if the Lower Decks characters weren't as good, the original ones, they weren't as compelling, the stories weren't as good, Lower Decks wouldn't be nearly as good. And I think Star Trek needs new stories, new places in the timeline. Star Trek needs to be moving forward. But at the same time, like, a lot of their original characters aren't very good. In the live action, like in Picard, I don't like any of the original ones. I guess Jack's all right. A lot of people like Captain Shaw. I'm surprised with how popular Captain Shaw seems to be. But I do worry that they're gonna learn the wrong lessons. And Star Trek Picard Season 3 isn't working because it's got the legacy characters. It's because they've been so well understood. They've been handled. They've had arcs where initially I've gone, whoa, where's this coming from? they've been justified, they've been earned, they've made sense. This episode potentially being the exception with some odd moments. But I think everyone's positions, their arcs and stuff, it's because they took these legacy characters, understood them, and made a good season out of it. Compelling stories, a compelling kind of mystery. Like, even now, we're still wondering, like, we don't have a clue why they want Jack. No idea. We don't even know if they want him dead or alive. So I am a bit worried. Skipping ahead a bit to David C. has donated $20. Love this stream. Thank you. Thank you. I think you're probably half of the channel's entire income since we've got remonetized. And you're also pushing me to actually fill out Google AdSense. But yes, thank you, David C., for the $20 donation. Stop George. Well, I've got some comments were coming in as I gave that whole spiel, so I respectfully disagree with David C. Season 3 is marginally better in terms of writing, and that makes sense. There are a few writers from Season 1 and 2 still on board. I think it does not make sense. I mean, you disagree with the premise, but it's night and day to me, Seasons 2 and 3. The only reason I know that it's written by the same people is the only thing Season 2 did good was its core scenes, and they're being nailed. They were nailed in the same way they're being nailed right here. Trust VK, the station is enormous because a couple hundred can accommodate a starship. That's a big station, but it's a museum. Like, they've probably got a bunch of stuff that aren't the starships. I think it's actually small for a starship museum. Like, maybe there's a bunch of ones in here, you know, if it's Earth space dock type. In fact, does it even have the same numbers? And, like, it's 15 instead of 14. But, yeah. Let's see. Stress VK, the station is a... Oh, I read that one. David C., I tried to like it, but just too many giant plot holes and hatred of canon. Oh, God, which one are you talking about now? Examples, sonar in space? What show is that? I'm not sure. David C., I definitely do like Lower Deck. Strange New Worlds is okay, but not great so far. I'm going to give it a chance. Strange New Worlds is one day of sitting down and meeting and seeing what worked and what didn't from becoming the best Star Trek show. Unfortunately, everybody is giving nothing but praise for Strange New Worlds. And from what I've seen about where they're taking Season 2, the comments from the writers and stuff and everything, I don't think they're doing that. I think they've gone, we've made an amazing season that everyone loves. Let's just keep on keeping on. And because of that, I think Season 2 is going to actually be a step down because of the story and tone I believe they're going into. Which is why I'm so critical on Strange New Worlds. Because I think I liked a lot of the episodes. I think I liked most of them. But those core problems are what I remember. I remember there was a great episode. I remember I liked Spock's brain so much, I put the I was wrong sticky note on my head. I remember the problems more. And it's like, imagine if Season 1 of TNG never improved. Like, I like the early seasons, but, you know, they're not the later ones. And so it's frustrating to me. It would be frustrating to see Strange New Worlds just, like, so close to that. Just a dissection of, like, what worked, what didn't, to becoming outstanding. And it would be so frustrating to see that not happen. Stress VK? Yes, there we go. No, stop George. Picard Season 3 is a mystery box on top of mystery boxes with a very thin plot stretched over 10 episodes. I can't get specific here, but there are plot holes and sloppiness in the writing in every episode. I actually think if you had to have a mystery box, it's being done really well here because it hasn't been the focus. Other than last episode, which was the dullest episode of the 10. I don't think it's going to be as good as Enterprise Season 3, but I think it going back, it's going to maintain a lot of quality for the same reason that Enterprise Season 3 was not about the Xindi, not about the Expanse, the Spheres, any of that junk. And Picard Season 3 is not about what's happening to Jack. It's about other stuff. It's about connection. It's about these characters. And that's more the focus. Stress VK, I like them all, but Disco is my fave because it's the boldest. I guess going back to what I was saying before, yeah, it's kind of the only one that's truly paved its own path. Prodigy is pretty close, but it does still have Janeway. Lower Decks is very... It could pave it. It could stand on its own, but there is no denying it is standing on 24th century. Carlos, Prodigy has a moderate viewership, but that is a very borderline. It's a kid show. It's just not going to be popular. It's a shame. I hope that changes in my lifetime, is the kids who grew up with, like, Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Prodigy, and, like, these really great kid shows just don't give them up. But it's an animated kid show. That's going to knock so many people away right off the get-go. Ooh, that's a new one. Revo Dave? Picard Season 3, best Trek for years. Wait, come back after it ends. But no, it's definitely good. David C. Lowell. Stop George, not knowing the mystery about Jack 6 episodes in is not a good thing. It would not be a good thing if the show was just the mystery box, like Season 1. Season 1, the mystery box was the focus, therefore it would not be a good thing. In this season, I agree they probably could have maybe done away with the mystery box, but there's more to the story. There's more focus to the story, so it's okay. I mean, in Enterprise, you probably went like 18 episodes before knowing what the spheres were. You probably went like a third of the season before you found a sphere. Stress VK, Captain Shaw is literally an avatar for the Freedom Menace, down to his mediocrity and stubborn intolerance. I don't know what you're saying there. I think people seem to like watching him be a dick, and that's just not something I can understand. I mean, it's preference. It ultimately comes down to, but it's kind of something I can't argue why you're wrong, and I can't really argue why you're right. I can tell you why I don't like it, and you can tell me why you don't care. It's one of those. David C., it showed that the writers have no conception of science at all. Oh, Discovery showed us the sonar in space. David C., you're standing on some pretty shaky ground here. I would be amazed if the phrase sonar in space was never mentioned in classic Trek. In fact, there's a difference between sonar and radar. I think sonar is impossible in space because it actually needs something to propagate through, but like radar in space, I mean, look, just if you want to jump like shit on Discovery science, let's talk about the spore drive. Riva Dave, is the old space dock from the old film? It's yeah, I mean Earth space dock, which I'm gonna admit I think it's a little overused. I think Earth space dock should be Earth space dock, but it is a nice design. David C., and don't get me started on the ridiculous mycelial network to move the ship around. Yikes. Yeah, my biggest problem with that is probably the prequels, but I haven't seen early Discovery in so long. It's harder for me to comment on, and I probably won't see it for a long time. Sup, George, please tell me what the plot is if it's not Jack in the plot against the Federation. Besides these thin plot lines we know little about, it's all about member berries. We agree. Not to agree, that's okay. The plot, yes. The Changeling plot is an important aspect of the plot. What is going on there? But, especially early in the season, the focus was on Picard and Jack. It was on where these characters were after 20 years. It was on Riker's fear of death. It was more on the relationships and how it was on the legacy that these characters had. It's much more focused on the people, and it's probably gonna be a little harder for me to find until the show properly wraps up. But again, I don't think it's necessarily as good as Enterprise Season 3, but to use that analogy again, Enterprise Season 3, the one with the Xindi, is not about the Xindi. It is not about the weapon. It is not about the Expanse. Those are all elements of the plot. They are all very good elements of the plot. I think it's an exceptionally done mystery. It's exceptionally paced. The information's given out. It's great. But that's not the focus. The focus is on what will humanity do? How will these people react, and what will they do when literally everything is on the line? How willing are they to stick to their morals and ethics when literally everything is on the line? That's what the season explores, and so that's why you can rewatch Season 3 of Enterprise, and it's nearly as good as the first time. It's not as good because, yes, you're missing, the mystery. But that's not the focus. The mystery happens in the background of these questions. Like the moment after Earth is attacked, the mission is go meet the Xindi and make peace because they're clearly mistaken. That's the mission. The mission isn't we're at war. The mission isn't stop the Xindi. The mission isn't stop the weapon. It's make contact so we can explain the situation. That's kind of what I mean. David C., I agree they're overloading the member berries. Yeah. And that's what I mean by learning the wrong lessons, is that I'm not going to claim Picard Season 3 is outstanding. Certainly not yet. But I'm afraid they're learning, and like these things I'm seeing, they're going, people love classic Star Trek nostalgia. We do. But just slapping it on the screen isn't enough. The unfortunate truth, though, is it is enough for a lot of people. If I go on the Reddit, there's a lot of people, like, I cried when I saw Voyager again. If it's working financially, they're kind of gonna do it. You could even argue that it's working. Like, if they're making money, then yes, it is working. But, I'm just a little uneasy. I have to see where they go in the future. David C., the plot is that the Federation is in danger. Something is supposed to happen on Frontier Day. Yes, but that's not what the show is about. The show's about the TNG cast, their relationship with each other, and in particular, Picard and Jack. The plot is that the Federation is in danger. Something's supposed to happen on Frontier Day. But that's not the focus. At least not yet. I think they could pivot, like first half season, less half of the season. But, hey, we're in the middle. We do what we can. The relationships, etc., are the subplots, B-plots. Agree to disagree. I think they're becoming the B-plots, but at the start, it was the focus. We didn't even know about the changelings and stuff until, like, 2 episodes ago. Are they trying to bring back Locutus of Borg? That is the running theory, Revodale. If you go to the Reddit, I will post it. Actually, the link in the chat. There is a post by PFC9769. It's kind of like highlighted with a bulb. You'll see it. We talked about it at the start of the stream, but I think it's got a lot about the plot right. The being who is talking to Vatic intends to wreak havoc on Frontier Day, and they clearly need Jack and possibly Picard as well. I think they need them out of the way, is where I'd take it. But yeah, that's a mystery still. I don't know what they need him for. Just VK, as much as I like new ideas, I wouldn't mind seeing Seven back in Astrometrics. I'd rather drop 7 because I'm not entirely satisfied with the direction of her character. If it's kind of like, I don't know how many people will get this reference, but like what Big Finish did to the Sixth Doctor, if they make Star Trek Janeway and they put 7 on Starfleet, I think you need to tweak some things about her character. Call it a, I'm happy now, therefore I don't know, softer. I hate to say it, but almost more... No, more Starfleet isn't the word, because 7 was never really Starfleet. She's just an aspect of this... My biggest complaint with this season, the whole feeling of this is a modern-day country. This isn't the United Federation of Planets. She's an aspect of that. Just her behavior, her viewpoints, her depressive cynicism, and I'd rather leave her behind with the rest of this take on Starfleet. Because I also just don't see any justification. Like, if Starfleet didn't become this during the Dominion War, I don't see how they could have become this in the, 20 years after the Dominion War. Carlos A. Smith, well, this is the buzz for Star Trek Picard Season 3 on Paramount. The first opening episodes, the numbers weren't hot. Midway now, it is picked up. They are discussing the possibility of a new series with Terry. No AK. Where are you getting these figures on viewing? Because that's entirely behind closed doors, I hear. I'll say, I definitely don't think I'd be opposed to another series with Terry. Not after this. Because I have faith in what this writing team can do, and that's nail its core ideas. But it is weird because I've seen them write a shockingly poorly executed script in Season 2, and I've seen this, which, I mean, you could still cock it up, but, like, especially early on, so it is dropping a bit for me, but early on, this was a great series, great show. And I would not be opposed. I think it's... Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see what the future holds. But I would love to get statistics on, like, how these shows are doing. Kind of understand the thinking behind them more. And this is definitely one I mentioned before. With Doctor Who, I love the podcast Fuck Yeah, Doctor Who, which helped me look at what I didn't like about a lot of Chibnall's run and actually understand why I didn't like it. They're doing Star Trek Picard Season 3, as well as, along with The Fast and the Furious. It's a podcast called Too Fast, 10 Forward. Yes, that probably sounds very weird. I'm definitely going to have to go back, and I want to watch this episode and see what they say. I'm very interested to see if Daniel Hardcastle Nerdcube likes this season. But that's one where I need someone like them to come in and be like, this is why you didn't like it. But I think it is there's a dichotomy for me that's hard to place between this sort of Munderberries, is that what you call them? This, like, love for the classic, just kind of this is what Star Trek looks like, and then the actual plot that's kind of trying to progress but keeps being interrupted by this. And the setting of, like, Section 31 station in this modern-day country of the Federation where Starfleet security officers have no conniptions about watching Riker being beaten. That was another thing. I can't believe I keep forgetting this. They beam onto Daystrom, which is controlled by a highly lethal AI. That's not Starfleet. Like, they beam into the room, which just so happens to have the chips to deactivate the security system. And after, like, 5 seconds, it's like, identify yourselves or we will use lethal force. Why? Why not, instead of shooting them with lethal force, why not shoot them with stun? And if that doesn't work, I guess maybe then you can ramp it up. But, like, if you're gonna gas them, why not use sleeping gas? Like, you know, even if you're gonna be evil, if you kill them, you can't interrogate them. Like, it's the same problem. This series had 7 just, like, people murdering changelings. It's like, this is a Starfleet phaser. It has a stun setting. What who even are we? Like, if this actually was a modern day show and I saw the American government, the American military behaving like this, I'd be a bit like, really though? Like, I know, but this doesn't even make sense if you're gonna be like an evil organization. Yeah. Where am I in the chat messages? Paramount has released top viewing numbers, not the ratings, but that is just from Paramount only. I'd be interested to see those. Because there's a very telling chart with the classics. Let me see if I can bring it up. Star Trek classic viewing figures. It's kind of a very telling... Yeah, there it is. I mean, we're taking data out of any context, but the Nelson rating for Star Trek episodes of, like, TNG was pretty consistent, grew a bit, and then it's basically, like, downhill from there. There's always a peak for the new season, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, but there's kind of that trend downward to cancellation, and there are other reasons you might want to take these viewing figures with a grain of salt, but I want this for the modern streaming shows. I'd be very interested to see that. David C. Damn, have to run. Oh, well, you're not hearing this then. We'll listen to the stream after the fact this evening. Thanks, N Squared, and everyone here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the $20. Very, very appreciated. Trust VK, the way they've reinvented Worf is a revelation. I love his struggle between the Tau and the Wario ethers. That's the thing, is they haven't reinvented Worf. They took him down a very natural path that's a very natural, not conclusion, but like, you know, resolution to his 14 years of development on TNG and Deep Space Nine. This episode, actually, it felt out of place. It felt like my fear of doing a pacifist Worf wrong. And yeah, they're not doing that, I know. But it felt like just making him different for the sake of it. Every episode it worked, but especially with Riker's comments and stuff, it just all felt out of place. Another thing I want to bring up, is Geordi actually stubborn? Because when they said that in this show, I'm like, I did not get that from TNG. Maybe I didn't get it because he never really had to stand his ground, but I don't know. That struck me as odd. Stop George. The thing that is completely missing in the writing of this season is that there are no interesting thought experiments / moral dilemmas, etc. There's so many missed opportunities that would ignore. I would love a return to that. I agree. I actually will argue episode 2, though not the best executed, was that. It actually praised it for solving a lot of the problems that I have traditionally with episode 2s, and that it was an episode about, we all know giving Jack Crusher to Vadic is wrong, but that's the wrong decision, but no one knows what the right decision is because we can't stand up to her. And that's a synopsis for the stand-up for an amazing Star Trek episode. There's a person on board, giving them up to the enemy is wrong, but the enemy can destroy us in a second, so if we don't give him up, everybody dies. That's a Star Trek episode right there. That's a moral dilemma. Brilliant. But I will say I don't think it was the best executed. But yeah, a return for the moral dilemmas. Absolutely. For the numbers, look at Flix Patrol. I might do that afterwards. Because I'd rather also look at how legit the sources are before putting those on stream. If you notice that only the protagonists are swearing in the show, I find that curious. I have not. But also, I feel like changelings wouldn't really swear. Living in the Great Link, I guess, why would you need it? I will also say that by far the protagonists have more lines than Vatic. And every other antagonist doesn't speak English. They make, like, crackly noises. But I have not noticed that. I guess it might be a thing that they want kind of a cool, calculated villain, and if you're cool in that, in the kind of sense I mean, you don't swear. Swearing would detract from, I think, the image they want for their villain, so they're not going to do it, but they don't care if everyone else swears, and that's why it's happening. Yeah, going through... See, I'm the kind of person, like, you know, we see Geordi again, like, but that alone isn't enough for me. You gotta kind of do something with Geordi, and I don't know, there wasn't enough there for me to almost feel like justify bringing him back. It's like, yeah, that's Geordi. You want to do something with him? Like, he's got plenty of time left in the season, of course, but I think that's what sets me apart from a lot of the people I see on Reddit, and the people where actually, like, what does someone call them? Memberries are working for? I mean, sometimes it's nice. Power of the Doctor, the last episode of Doctor Who, brought back a lot of classic Doctors, and that was great to see, you know? It still wasn't a good episode, but it brought enough fun along to be an enjoyable watch. So, who knows? Who knows anymore? No one knows what they want. Carlos, here's the thing. Terry wrote only the plot from Season 2. That was the worst part. Getting his team to work on Season 3. But it feels like he did not get full control on the writing directions to what he wanted. Example, the warp effect. See, the plot is my biggest problem with Season 2. They could do a dystopian story, because it was actually in a dystopia, but the plot didn't work. That was the problem. Carlos, he wanted the old way, and the executive producers wanted the new Trek way, their vision. Season 2 was not the old way. I mean, you know, it sounds great on paper, but does his idea of the old way mean let's use the TOS sound effects because I liked those. Let's have the legacy ships in the final battle. Let's mention LOL, finally. Finally, thank God someone remembered that LOL is in Data's mind. But yeah, he still has to prove himself. I've seen 2 seasons and they're very different, but I know what he can do well. Stop George, I think the swearing is the writer's attempt to connect with the audience more. That and the anachronisms that they continuously use. Yes, that has been another problem with me, where I don't think, in, like, the entirety of classic Star Trek, anyone used, like, a colloquialism or a saying, like a slang, except when it was, like, someone who's actually from the past. So who was that guitar guy from, Samuel? I don't remember. The guy from the last episode of Season 1 of TNG, like, that was Frozen, the southern guy. Or, like, Tom Paris. But Tom Paris, it can work because he is an enthusiast about the 20th century. So, you know, it makes sense that you kind of know the slang. If you like the Victorian era, you know some Victorian slang, sure. But New Trek does. New Trek has pot. New Trek says dudes. New Trek does things that even when they say it in the moment, it feels dated. Like the Elon Musk reference they did as well. I don't think classic Star Trek ever really referenced a contemporary character, except Stephen Hawking, who at that point would have been very well established, had some very, like, yes, theories that will last. Had he done Hawking radiation at that point? Like, Stephen Hawking was the closest they got to a contemporary famous character. They invented other ones. Buck Bokai, the comedian from TNG, Vic Fontaine, you know, they invented other people when they needed someone like that. And I think that's not only detracting from the experience now, at least for me. I mean, Elon Musk, when they said Elon Musk, it was dated at the time. I'm like, that's not gonna last. And already that's like, oof. But, yeah, I don't like that. They need to drop that aspect. I like, because the alternative is to make up your own slang, which a lot of shows do. I don't think it ever really works for me personally. It always just feels kind of wrong, but I think it's also might be an aspect of that professionalism. Like, the people in the Enterprise just didn't really use slang. They could have, but it's certainly adding to the longevity of Star Trek. Could you imagine if Kirk's crew sounded like the Scooby-Doo gang? Or, you know, like, Picard would, like, say the day, and he'd be like, radical! They'd be like, it'd just be so jarring. That's what this is like in 10, 20 years. We're gonna look back at this and be like, did they just say dude? You know, like, what? What's pot? Like, what's that? Stop, George. I'm noticing a lot of message redacted. Is that because there's some sort of filter I've put on the chat that is too strict, or are you deleting your own messages? Because usually when it flags something as inappropriate, I get to approve it or not. God, I've lost my place entirely. Jordy's daughter is hot. Hello, autism is unstoppable. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for your contribution. Which one? Stop, George. Remember Star Trek 4, the one with the whales? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. This is one. Not to interrupt, but Jack Crusher, a person who loves starships at that, doesn't know Voyager. What's the analogy I used last episode? Voyager was the battleship that disappeared and then a few years later contacted you from Mars. It's like, how did it get to Mars? Like, I'm sorry, no, Jack Crusher knows Voyager. Like, but he knows the thing about the whales, but not Voyager. Okay, fine. Kirk had a really hard time getting swing, right? That made sense. Yeah, but also, I'm not gonna pretend like Deep Space Nine, even potentially TNG, worked against that. Like, they would say damn, and like there'd be swearing, it just wasn't as severe. But I'm not gonna pretend Modern Trek is the first to kind of contradict that. Carlos A. Smith, no, he did not work on Season 2. 2 women wrote that. He was working on Season 3, and that is why he filmed right after Season 2 was finished. I thought they filmed it during Season 2, but this makes a lot more sense. I'd imagine there's a lot of the same core writers, though, on the 2 seasons. Just VK, do you have any problem with bringing back, again, Alex is in the room. We're going to dance around some proper nouns here. It seems to me that Geordi will help integrate all his personalities, including that one. I have to see what they do with it. I like that they didn't really bring him back. They brought back a conglomeration of people that includes him. I don't like that everyone just slapped their hands and went, justified! We've brought him back now, let's only call him by this. Because there's even more people than were mentioned. Like, they mentioned Lowell. I'm pretty sure he uploaded, like, Grandpappy's consciousness to his mind. Anyone remember that episode? I wish I could remember its name. Data's Grandpappy guy. There's a lot of people floating around, but... I don't know. I think it undermines Season 1, which I also had problems with. I think it undermines Nemesis, but I think Nemesis kind of did that. I think he's become Star Trek's Gallifrey. If you're not familiar, in Doctor Who, Gallifrey, the planet of the Doctor, between the classic and the reboot, it got destroyed. They destroyed Gallifrey. That was a big deal. A few years later, they kind of brought it back. It was a huge deal. Gallifrey came back, but they failed to bring it back. It stayed destroyed. Then, in the 50th anniversary, they went back in time and saved Gallifrey, but it was lost. So, like, it wasn't in the show anymore, but instead of being destroyed, it was just lost somewhere. Then finally, in the culmination of, like, a 10+ year saga, the Doctor finally found Gallifrey again. It was back. It was in the universe. You know, they could tell story was with that. Not 5 years later, it got destroyed again with no other story on Gallifrey in the meantime. And it's become, at this point, kind of like what was this like big canon thing, this big significant event. It's like, no, we destroy Gallifrey every other week. Like, it's now kind of like, you know, we bring this character back every other week. Like, is there any consequence at this point to what happens to this guy? Like, I think they might have done it one too many. It made sense in season 1 because you'd set up already that copy, and people weren't too happy with Nemesis in general. I quite like Nemesis, but you know, you gave him a more fitting ending. But then 2 seasons later, you're like, okay, we'll bring him back. Like, yeah. And I also don't like I never like immortality is bad stories. I've talked about this before. I think they're damaging. I think they're totally unfounded. It doesn't help that was the basis of this story. And also, Alton uploaded his mind anyway. So, you know, who's talking? And it kind of seems to go directly against what the character actually wanted. Like, he's expressed a fear of outliving his friends. And in the last season, you actually had him say, like, hey, please euthanize me. But no, I guess we'll bring him back in some sense. Stop George, you're deleting / editing. That's good. Carlos, between B4, lore, yep, lol. He has the most life lived. Oh, don't remember. Every colonist on his original planet, Grandpappy. I could probably find something on Memory Alpha of everyone. Like, if you haven't seen TNG in a while, it happens a surprising number of times, and they're just never brought up again.
Come here.
Let's see. I am upset, though, that Lol wasn't one of the voices we heard in that scene where he was going through all of them. I don't know if B4 is third in life experience, though. Carlos, forgot that Soom, the unknown son. Yeah, that he's got a lot of minds swimming around there. It's no wonder he went insane. Do you remember Soon was actually there when they pulled the plot? No, thank you, Stop George. I give him he wasn't there to hear what was said, but I assume Picard articulated it. Yeah, that's kind of weird. It really undermines season 1, which, as much as I disagree with the message fundamentally, it was a well-done scene. It was a strong message, but wasn't that like the entire core of season 1 was Picard couldn't move past his death, and like it's kind of the entire point of season 1 was just totally undermined. He was there yes, but he wasn't in like the little meeting that Picard had with the construct whatever in some imaginary realm. He wasn't there for that. But yes, he was there for the funeral? The euthanasia? Just for game, my hope is that they download him into a younger body. He wouldn't want that, though. Also, Paramount wouldn't want to spend the money to de-age him. Like, as much as I disagree with it, I have to admit that season 1 is exactly what that character would have wanted. I think he's wrong, but I think it's entirely consistent with what the character wants. But this is like a new person, and no one's treating it like that. I guess you could kind of understand it if your friend just like sorta came back to life, but it's I don't know. I have to see how it's handled from here. Was this weird to anyone else? This resolution? Come on. Oh, where are you? Farpoint and Oh, I will claim without proof that yes, I could guess what was happening. Because I remember that song. I remember it was Pop Go the Weasel. I didn't when I first watched Nemesis, but you bet I never forgot. There we go. This is a weird resolution. Yeah, stop, George. That's what I mean when he was there, but he wasn't there to hear the character explain why he wanted to die. That was just Picard. But I assume Picard articulated it. Yeah, that's a D7. It's brown, which is a little bit... Oh my goodness! That's not the Enterprise, that's an NX. That's a Columbia-class refit. Properly canonized now. It would have been weird if they had a fake model of the ship, but, I guess there's no reason the Enterprise couldn't have been refit. I'd love to prove that's the Enterprise. Because, well, actually, sorry, yes there is. These are the Voyages, it wasn't refit. So that's not going to be the Enterprise. If we're going by beta canon, that's not going to be the Columbia. So, but, of course, we don't have to go by data canon. We could technically retcon These Are the Voyages, say whoever wrote their Hollow novel that Riker used did bad research. But, I'd like to think the Enterprise got the Columbia-class refit. There's no way in hell. Hey, I hope they're in the final battle, and we can see what ship that is. Imagine trying to warp to the final battle, though, because if they all arrive at the same time, that means they traveled at warp 5, because that's what the NX could do. Yeah, my point soon says most of the Golem thing was his memories. Oh no, I completely agree with you. It totally undermines season 1, and You're right. We're just arguing semantics, though. Like, how much does it not make sense? Also, why is he here? That's kind of weird. Like, Daystrom had before. I did check. The Daystrom Institute, according to Memory Alpha, is considered a division of Starfleet. So, yes, this isn't like just some civilian thing. I assume it's tied to Daystrom Institute then. I don't know. It's also weird, though, because, like, they had to build new models, but they still sort of use Jupiter Station and, like, the Pathfinder array. The Star Trek is really lazy about space stations. That's just what it is. They will be damned if they ever design a new space station. Even though they have to build them from the ground up. If you don't know, I believe Eaglemoss would have done some work to potentially help this, but the old CGI files from, like, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Nemesis are on an outdated format that can't really be read. I think even, like, for Nemesis, they would have been outdated in, like, early Deep Space Nine and stuff, so you can't just get the old files and put them in the new show. They'd have to rebuild these. Everything we see that wasn't made for another show already had to be rebuilt. Stress VK, oh, no, you can't. You cannot recast that character. He is so intertwined with the actor. No. Just don't. That's the other fear I have with, like, learning the wrong lessons from these shows. Like, Strange New Worlds is doubling down on the number of legacy characters, and, like, that's gonna detract it from me, especially with how they take Kirk. Some bizarre... I don't understand the idea of revisioning the character, because legitimately, the thinking with the Strange New Worlds Kirk, from both the actor and the writers, is, they could never replace William Shatner. True. William Shatner did an iconic thing with that character, such an iconic vision, voice, everything. They can't replace it, and they acknowledge they can never live up to that. So their decision is, instead of trying to mimic the character, imitate the character that Shatner built, that is beloved, that Shatner's probably super attached to and beloved. Instead, they're going to take a completely different take that's nothing really like the original in respect. So I'm like, in respect, you're going to totally change the character that this person built up without their consent or even like acknowledgement and just make them totally different now? That's respect? Respect is, hey, let's not put Odo in Star Trek Picard Season 3. That's what respect is, because you can't replace Renee. Like, yeah. Just be gay? Oh, yeah. The writers will do it. You watch. It depends on the writer, because they're not gonna... Or maybe the actor as well. Because they're not gonna replace Odo. They're just not. And he died a while ago. Like, it wouldn't be offensive to recast Odo at this point, but they're not gonna do it. I think if that actor is still alive, maybe they would. If that actor dies, they never will. So I'm rooting for that actor to die. No. Some characters and actors are just too intertwined. Like, you can't recast Q. You can't recast Data. You can't recast Picard. Like, I don't know. They're too intertwined. I know you'll disagree, but I don't think these writers have a lot of respect for the TNG characters. Oh, I totally disagree with that. I might argue on their interpretation in some cases, or how they're trying to reflect that, but they definitely have respect for these actors. I mean, if anything, I'm complaining at how much respect they're writing for other characters to see the legacy actors. I think they're giving too much respect. Yes, just VK, sort of like a Trill individual. That's what I thought as well. But I don't know. I have to see where Data goes. Sup, George? I think you'll disagree, but I don't think these... Oh, I read that one. Carlos, Bill has no true ownership to the character by law. Who is Bill? Do you mean Brent? Oh, William Shatner. Sorry. Yeah. So it will be up to the owner of the IP to make the change. Oh, absolutely. William Shatner doesn't own Kirk. In fact, William Shatner is not even someone that you necessarily should respect what they want for the character. Like, he's hardly a saint, but my point is both the new actor and the writers didn't want to disrespect Kirk. They want to respect Kirk and William Shatner. That is their goal. And to do that, they are fundamentally changing the character, and I will never understand that logic. Like, if you don't want to imitate him, fine, then don't have the character. But, like, if you're not going to stay true to the character, how are you being respectful? I'm not even trying to judge them. Like, legitimately, I would love to sit down and have them try to explain to me how that is respect. But I've disagreed with a lot of how they've done recasts and stuff in general, but also in modern Star Trek. The characters are often out of form, and they're continually being talked down to. Yeah, by Shaw, who's a dick. But hey, what about this scene where Shaw absolutely idolizes Geordi? Yeah. Also, you know what, actually? This is the kind of shot that, like, as a studio, I'd be like, yes, greenlight the project. You have the Titan A, which kind of looks like a Constitution, being flanked by the original Constitution and the Enterprise A, and then the NX as well. Like, come on, these museum ships are gonna go into battle and somehow win. God, the Enterprise A, I would be amazed if you could get the Enterprise A to the battle, let alone fight it. That thing was always falling apart. Maybe there'll be a line like that's what Geordi does for fun, is just repair all these ships. Yeah, I don't know if I really have too much more to say. It was interesting that he has the yellow eyes in a synth body, but I guess I don't know. I mean, like, there are plenty of reasons you might do it. Stop George. The exterior shots are really nice. I'll give him that. It was off again. I think it's the lighting that's much more realistic, but in the museum. In the old days, the classics, space was just kind of lit, right? It just was. You could see things, and that's not how it's done nowadays. But so I think it's weird seeing these ships not just lit up, but also because there's not just light, it's the right color, but it looks a bit too gray. Because that's just what happens when you put white and shadow. And same kind of like with Voyager, looked a bit dark, but when I actually put the Defiant, side by side with what we see here, yeah, it's right. If Voyager has its armor, then it's definitely the right color. Come on, can I get Voyager? It's gonna be here. Well, this looks right, definitely, but it's like greens and reds, so that makes sense. But I guess grayscale is a lot more vulnerable to the lighting, like changing color and stuff. Hang on, I'm gonna get the Voyager up. Who's corrupted me? I hate the Voyager. I know it's the Enterprise and the Defiant, but it's Voyager. Surely, like, come on. I don't know. It's funny. Like, I don't know. It's weird that there's so much contempt with some people around saying the Voyager, even though every other ship is the. Like, is it just me, or does this look a little too gray and metallic? Like, Voyager was almost a blue. It was a very light gray. But is that just the lighting, or have they actually changed Voyager? Which I know had inconsistent coloring, but this doesn't look like either. Star Trek USS Voyager. Images. Well then again, like, is it... I don't know. Oh, wait, is that an undershot of Voyager? This is what I want to see. No, it is. It's gray. Voyager was a little blue. Yes, kind of depended on the season. Because I know at some point they did change the hue of Voyager. I guess, I don't know what this is, but it maybe looks a lot closer to this Voyager. But I feel like Voyager's the wrong color. It's a bit blue, unless it still has its armor from the finale. Justificate lol. It's the concept of the positronic brain that Trek needs. I mean, we kind of have that. It's the synthetic race that it's already out there in the galaxy. Stress VK. And Stop George. Another mistake they made was the fact that they can't transport while cloaked. Another plot convenience at the expense of canon. Can you not? I was trying to remember this, actually. Surely you can, because there was that time the Klingons brought Picard and Riker to Romulus in Unification, and they were cloaked, that's why you couldn't be detected, but they also beamed Riker and stuff down. I'm sure. Hang on. No. Citation needed. Star Trek, can you beam while cloaked? I'd also like to point out the Titan was not cloaked when it left Daystrom Station. Can you beam to and from a cloaked ship? Can't beam what you can't lock onto. Well, yeah. So you can't... I would say no. Star Trek 4, same ship, they did. They beamed while cloaked? Well, there you go. Yeah, they did. They beamed, like, the whales and stuff on, didn't they? Were they cloaked at the time? I don't know. But yeah, I feel like the Voyager is probably the exception, though. Every other ship was done really well. Voyager's too dark. It just is. I think I read something as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Prodigy gets a Voyager A, because we never saw the ship. It's gonna be Janeway commanding. Like, that would not surprise me. Where's the Enterprise? It was before the A. Yeah, there's the Defiant. I think it was just before the Enterprise A, wasn't it? The biologist was beamed while cloaked. There we go. There we go. Yeah, look at this. What's this panel work? Matt Jeffries is turning in his grave. I'm sorry. No. Everything else about this is great, but you do not put panels on the TOS Enterprise. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of the design philosophy. The whole point is it's seamless because they're beyond panels. All right, I'm going to take a step back. This is awful. This is the worst thing I've seen in my whole life. No, but that's wrong. That's wrong. Alex, look at this. It's wrong. It's got panels.
I don't get what the big
It's
deal
got
is.
panels. You don't put panels on the Enterprise.
I mean, cons have panels.
Well, not this Enterprise.
Cons have panels.
Cons?
Yeah, like Comic-Cons.
But no, it's got panels. It's not the What do you think it didn't? Do they think the Constitution class didn't have panels because it was expensive? Devil's in the details exactly. Because look, this looks great. This looks great. These look great. This looks great. This looks like garbage. It's amazing what the details do. That's actually upsetting, because this would have been an amazing picture had it not been for the paneling. Why? Would they have thought a modern audience wouldn't accept it because it's too bland? I'm sorry, you're in the Starfleet Museum. But that ruins the whole design. That's incredible. It's like the Daleks, isn't it? I've talked a lot about Doctor Who, but like the Daleks are such an amazing design. It's incredible how easily you can ruin them. Like, add one extra neck ring, ruin. Give them a little bit of a hunch, ruin. Like, it's amazing how fragile the design is. But that's disappointing. But other than that, it looks so good. The coloring is probably just about right. It might be a bit off, but I mean, it's accurate enough. Probably to how it looked as well, as opposed to the model. I've seen the actual model. I think before it was restored, but it's a museum piece. The rings should light up the ships. The rings do look a little dim, actually. Yeah. That's what these guys do on Square. They don't respect the rules. I wouldn't go that far, but that's a baffling decision to me. Wasn't there debate as well? They definitely did not have horizontal panels, but it had these circular rings. God, let me go get my Enterprise now. One sec. I feel dirty. I almost grabbed my Strange New Worlds Enterprise. Yeah, no, it didn't. On the underside, it had circles that I remember people would debate if they were, like, actually grooves or not. But, yeah, my Enterprise is a little greener as well. But I believe there is a difference between, what was on screen and what the model looked like. Maybe. You know what you could say? If you never saw the USS New Jersey in TOS before, am I going to have to go get... Funny enough, stop, George. I'm actually going to have to go get my Strange New Worlds Enterprise real quick. Yeah, you could say, I might headcanon. First off, it doesn't look like the Strange New Worlds Enterprise Sasha section. so they didn't just get lazy and reuse a model. But maybe you could say it's like in between Stranger Worlds and TOS. It wasn't quite as refit as our Enterprise, and so it looks like that. Maybe it got damaged early on. It became a museum piece early on, but yeah. I actually kind of like the Stranger Worlds design, but not for where it is and what it is. And of course, I mean, you can't beat that original Matt Jeffries, can you? I've got so many starships on the desk now. I'm not... Okay, fine. There we go. I'm gonna go get this one and just do a quick... I'm not going to get Voyager, though, because I know Voyager looks great. It's just the wrong color. This one's interesting, actually, because at least on my Eagle Moss model, the lines are more subdued than on my model. I like that the engines don't glow. They kept that accurate. They could have made it glow. But yeah, look. Alex, look at that. You can't see this, but yeah, side by side. Look at that.
One's gray.
They look good. What?
One's gray and one's white.
No, it's just in the dark. Like, look there.
One's gray and one's
look
white.
There.
One's gray and one's white.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could be fun seeing them in a final battle, but that also kind of feels like the most fan servicey thing. I did notice though, there's nothing bigger than like a Constitution. Because it has to fit in these little rings, right? Like, I think it might actually be pretty well scaled. I don't know if the Titan is really going to be that small. Come on, Comet, you can get up. There's also, what, an Akira. I don't know what those two are. They're too blurry. But yeah, that could be fun. Hey, we could get to see the NX, the Columbia refit in action for the first time. But yeah, Benjenium, hello. I hope you didn't miss the daylight savings announcement, but we're quite a ways into the stream. I was actually about to say, I think it might be about time to wrap up. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really do it for me. I like this discussion sitting down here, talking about all the stuff. And I mean, it's fun looking at the ships. But I don't know. There was just something maybe that was missing. There was that conflict between the plot they wanted and like all this memoraberries, but maybe I also just wasn't in like the mood. Just today wasn't the day. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully it picks up again a little bit, because I didn't quite like the last episode was the weakest of all, but 3 more episodes. I mean, now that's the thing. So episode 3 is the big battle with all these legacy ships, which means episode 2 has to set up that battle. Well, they could pull a Prodigy too. Like, they actually resolve it pretty quickly in the episode, because you gotta say goodbye to everyone, don't you? You've gotta have that sense of finality, or that like proper goodbye scene between like all these characters. So I think actually episode 9 will probably be the meat of that. Then maybe like half a resolution in 10 and half of a, I guess this is the end, or maybe even like a flash forward in time. I don't know if they could do that, but So what's next episode? Is it just setting up for episode 2? I mean, it means that next episode we've got to basically come to a head. That we've got to figure everything out. We just have to go, oh, sorry, I'm forgetting the big thing. No, we're not going to quite wrap up. Next episode is it could be very interesting, because I think it's going to be Riker having to deal with, is this Deanna Troi, or is this a changeling? Depending on the focus, the length, I hope that comes up at least once. It'd be very dumb if he didn't at least question it. But I think we're in room for some interesting and potentially very emotional, very powerful. Like, if this is Deanna, where's Kestra? Like, it's this is where how you could actually do and new. Is this a changeling or someone I know? Like, I don't think Deep Space Nine has done this. They've threatened to harm someone that might be a changeling. This would be a new kind of story like that, and so that could be really good. It can't be the whole episode, because we need to get to... Wait, hang on. 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 4 episodes left. It could be the whole episode. I'd be down for that. And so then episode 8 will probably be a lot of the setup. Maybe episode 7, they gotta figure out what Project Phoenix is. Episode 8 is dealing with that, then we start our resolution. But most of the focus of next episode is this. That could be a thing. Sup George, 6 out of 10 for me this episode. Too much memories and a hallway touchy feelings. It's hard to say because I feel like 5 and below you failed. I don't know. I'm usually... It's hard to put things on a 1 to 10. But I feel like when I've walked away from an episode and the best thing is just the superficial looking at the classic ships was nice, that's not good. Yeah. Stress VK, well, thanks for a great stream as always. You bring up excellent points and you don't see elsewhere. Thank you. As always, great to hear. Stop George, I'm scared where all this is going. I have little faith in these writers. I will say I read a little article on why Terry Mendez brought back the changelings. This could be a potential spoiler, right? So I'm wrapping up the stream. If you want to leave, now's a good time to do it. But it's nothing big. It could be. He brought up that obviously those little conspiracy bugs from TNG. I don't remember if I brought this up, but there's obvious parallels. This very easily could have been a plot about the conspiracy bugs from season 1 of TNG. It would wrap up another little dangling plot thread that would be great. But he didn't do that because the people who get infected by the conspiracy bugs are dead. They are dead. Like, you just dead. If someone's infected, then that's it. You can't get them back, whatever. But with a changeling, you don't know where the other person is. You don't know what could happen to them. And there's a lot more intrigue. You can do a lot more. And I might be ruining the mystery of next episode for myself already here. But he specifically mentioned that if it was the conspiracy bugs, there were 3 plot points he couldn't do without killing off legacy characters. Which implies 3 legacy characters are changelings. This would kind of make sense if this is a changeling, and so you literally could not do this point without killing Troy. It also suggests that he doesn't want to kill off legacy characters. I think I've seen a thread that, like, maybe Janeway could have been compromised. You could have hints of that. Maybe that's why she shows up to pilot the Voyager later. I don't know. But that was an interesting notion, especially with 4 episodes left, that potentially there are 3 legacy characters who are changelings. But we'll see. Maybe it was just the question. Like, even if it's the real Diana, like, you're questioning whether... I don't know. It's interesting. But, of course, my first question seeing Deanna is, where's Kestra? But I think it could be a good episode next time if it focuses on that. Is this Deanna or is this a changeling? And then, of course, the Titan crew is doing something. Can we please get these mystery boxes open? That'll happen. Oh, yeah, we're already... Especially if you, like, pause and read the plaques and stuff, there was a lot of setup. You know, we're opening the mystery boxes. Not that you've gotten the knife for the mystery box and took off all the wrapping paper. I'll tell you what, if we abandon mystery box plots, I'm going to miss these metaphors where I compare a mystery box to a present in like various states of unwrapping. Just because some people say changelings won't have telepathic abilities, that's a good point. But I think these new changelings, because they have a doctor physiology, may very well have Deanna's telepathic abilities. I agree that if Deanna's abilities are physical, something about maybe her brain, whatever, it should be able to be mimicked. But also, how does Riker know? Like, a good psychiatrist could probably guess how Riker's feeling in these moments. There are better ways for Riker to see if this is Deanna or not. But I'm hopeful. You know, I'm cautiously optimistic. There's a good foundation for next episode. What I don't want to see is no even mention of this. Riker just betrays the Titan, and it just like the next time we see Riker is when he shows up with Vatic. Stop George. The Shrike actually is in the shape of one of the conspiracy bugs. I think they changed this plotline well into the production. I seriously doubt it. It's at the start of this episode. I'm also not sure I agree with you on that point. I don't think I'd call that... It's vaguely insect-like, but I think that's coincidental. Yeah. Carlos, I'm very tired of mystery boxes. Stop George. It should be simple to test if Troy is a changeling. We'll see how gullible/stupid they paint Riker in the next episode. It should be very easy. I don't know, but you could also, maybe the changelings have done more to like, they can take someone's memories or whatever. Maybe that's not even what the episode's about at all. I'm just saying they could do it. They could potentially be well done. But yeah, we'll just have to see. Stress VK, I don't see the point of killing off legacy characters because that's always feels like cheap Malone. Well, for one point, he didn't actually want to kill the legacy characters. That's why it's not the conspiracy bugs. But for the other, not always. I mean, you had season 1, of course, of Picard. You had Nemesis with the same character. I guess Nemesis didn't kill off a legacy character, technically. But it doesn't have to be cheap. If done right, and especially with a character like this where this isn't Hugh, this isn't Icheb and stuff. If they kill off a legacy character now, if they kill off Riker, he'll have been here for all 10 episodes. Like, he wouldn't have shown up just to die. He would have been an integral part. And I actually, if I had to bet, I'd say Riker. If they're going to kill a character, it'd be Riker, which again is an if, because he started with a whole arc about fearing death, and the natural conclusion to that is for him to sacrifice himself. I would not be surprised at all if Riker goes, and you could potentially make that very meaningful and impactful. Maybe you can even mention something about Thaddeus, or I don't know, like it, but I don't think it definitely does not have to be cheap. Riker should be skeptical of that as Troy right from the start. I mean, maybe not his instant reaction, but absolutely he should try and prove that it is. Because again, it should be very easy to prove. They've known each other for so long. There's so much stuff he could ask. He should be able to know. Yeah. Troy's interesting, I've just realized, though, because, like, you can't have her as a part of this show. That's probably why she's been absent for so much, because she can read... She's empathic. She could tell if someone was a changeling or not pretty easily. That's actually a good point. Like, if Starfleet really wanted to, like, protect against changelings, a Betazoid in every outpost. A Betazoid in every meeting and everywhere. Like, I guess then the changelings would just replace the Betazoids. So it's not foolproof. But it is kind of interesting. The idea never came up in Deep Space Nine to bring a telepath or an empath to the station. Probably because it would have made the show a lot less interesting, but still. I think that then will be where I wrap up. So quick flash, so you can leave any messages. I'll wait to see when you get caught up. But yeah, it didn't do it for me as much this episode. They don't have DNA, so it's not implied that Roxana can't read Odo's mind. I'd argue the opposite, actually. I'm watching Deep Space Nine right now, and there's this scene where Roxana first meets Odo because someone stole something in Quark's bar. And he's like, can you sense any suspicion or whatever, any theft in the bar? And she goes, no, but Betazoids can't read Ferengi. I feel like it might have come up and be like, I also can't read you or something. I feel like it would have come up if Roxana can't read Odo. Maybe it did, and I'm forgetting. But a telepath or empath seems like it would have helped solve a lot of Deep Space Nine's problems. But again, just I'd impersonate the empath. And of course, it's probably hard to get a Betazoid for every outpost. Stop, George, you mean genes, genetic material. I think Odo... I think it's a little inconsistent, if I remember. That, like... I feel like I've seen Changeling's DNA with the augments and stuff, but... It's hard to remember. Really is. Just watch Deep Space Nine again, it's good. But yeah, I think it's about time to wrap it up then. So, thank you for watching, thank you for the discussions, and I'll see you next time.